Hi, it's Beverly Cole, and today I'm going to show you how to use a digital set to make a card. This was actually designed for journaling, but can be used for cards too, because you can make it any size you want as a digi, and you know, digis are forever. This is a background that I've already got on there, a collage, and one of the new papers that is designed to go with it. I'm using here the Spellbinders Nestabillities Fairmont labels. This is not a new die set, but it's one that I have and I love, and I'm going to use it on this card to make it a little more interesting. You could just print these out and layer them the way they look right now and you'd have a beautiful, easy card, but nothing is easy for me. I have to get a little more involved than just cutting and layering. So I'm going to use this smaller frame to highlight the sentiment, which is from the Aster Garden set, which goes, of course, with these papers. And I do apologize for the light. I don't know what's going on with my light these days. I've really got to practice more and get away from that brightness. I don't know what's going on. So I'm laying here deciding where I want to have my sentiment, and I'm going to use some distress inks. Now you'll see me use several colors, but I did end up using two that I will list below that ended up being the best colors for this card as I was creating this as I went along. So you're going to see some experimentation, but also what I end up using as the best colors. This one is Dusty Concord, which is a very pretty color. And I did end up using this one. You'll see me use some darker blue, which here, the chipped sapphire, I wouldn't suggest using that. It ended up making it look very dull when I layered it over the lavender. Now this is mustard seed. Also, I ended up using a different color than this, but this is what I started out with. Because as I went along, the colors changed and the dimensions changed, and you know how it is when you make a card. You just kind of are like, oh, let me try this and let me try that. And I think the card turned out really pretty. So there was no need for me to redo the video. I'm just going to point out to you, now you can see how that kind of dulls down that lavender color. So I would not suggest using chipped sapphire. I'm using some sponge daubers. You can use sponges, you can use your inking tool. It doesn't make any difference. But on the glass mat, when you come off the glass mat onto the card like I did, it does leave you a really nice smooth edge. There's no real spongy marks. So I use two colors to kind of add some dimension and interest to my sentiment, which is digital, of course. And I'm deciding where I want to put it. Do I want it here? Do I want it there? You know, you move it around, you wonder what you're going to do. So here you can see that collage, how small I made it. And it's perfect for a card. And you can use the collage in a journal, folding it in half. You can use it as a card front, of course. Make tags. Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun with these sets. And so here I'm deciding. I think I want to change the dimensions of my collage. So I'm going to cut some of that off so that we can see a little more of the background, which is made out of my Aster, my purple Aster that I colored, and the butterfly Aster. On that background paper, and this paper is available in several different colors in the kit, so you're going to be able to really make some interesting backgrounds with this kit. So here I'm using some more of those Nestabilities, and I'm going to repeat the shape, which is a nice thing when you're doing you know, an arrangement like this, to repeat shapes. Repeating shapes is a very good thing to do in design. So here I've made this square to match the square of the sentiment, and deciding again. Now you can see how I can layer them, which is really great. Now I've decided, well, you know, I really need to repeat that on the background. The background edge just looked too blunt to me to go with all those beautiful, interesting curvy lines. So using another one of the square frames, I'm using it on two corners and then repeating it on the other two corners so that I can get a rectangular frame. You just do two corners at once and then flip it around and do the other two sides. So you have your rectangle. At first I thought maybe some navy blue card And then I thought, well, I don't know. I'm thinking about it. It looks a little too dull to me. That navy blue is just not a bright navy blue. And of course, more inking of edges is necessary. And I ink those edges, and then I ink these edges using the lavender, and there is a little bit of the blue left on it, but that's okay. It's just to give it some dimension. And I love to ink. I love to ink edges like a lot of us do, and distress. I'm surprised I didn't crumple this paper up and ink it because I love to distress. But I don't know, these layers are really pretty, and I just wanted a really pretty card. So after inking the edges of that one, I'm deciding to change out the color of my background, which is where I go to a different color using wild honey around the edges of this embossed with big polka dots. That's for an embossing folder by Doris, or Darius, or however you say that. And I'm, of course, doing the edges and the corners. I love to do my corners. And this is going to highlight the embossed surface. Then that layer will go there, and then this layer goes here. And this card is starting to look pretty. Here I am darkening with the wild honey over the other color that I used earlier. And of course, I have to do more. So I'm thinking, well, yeah, put this up in the corner, and now it's becoming an arrangement of 3 rectangles, because you know every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square. So we're going to layer these in a little arrangement. And I need something to help those framed, the 2 smaller images stand out. It's a little dull looking to me. So as I'm sitting here thinking, gears are turning, and I decide that I'm going to use some tape to put the background on. You'll see me put it up toward the corner. There we go. And now for that next layer, I decided to use some embossing powder on the layers. And I went with Antiquities embossing powder from Sparkle and Sprinkle. And Sparkle and Sprinkle is now becoming a new company. And if you follow Sparkle and Sprinkle, you will discover that there is a new company that is kind of birthed from Sparkle and Sprinkle's retirement, where her son is going to start selling just the embossing powder and I believe the glitter. So you will still be able to get beautiful colors that you love so much. Now this is Antiquities, and it's one of my favorites. It's the one I use the most for this kind of a thing because I love antique. And it's kind of like an antique metal, and it's so pretty. So I emboss the edges of this square with that, heat setting it, and then I also do it on the sentiment piece. I knocked my camera, sorry, I kind of knocked my camera when I was doing this with my heat tool. So you're getting a unique view now of the mess next to me, all my different papers and things that I need to work on. My stamp designs, you can kind of see them stuck under there. Some new things that'll be coming out soon. So here, again, this is how I did the edges, smush the edges into the Versamark ink pad, and then just coat the edges with the embossing powder and heat set that, heat emboss. Whoops, there we go. I realized my camera was crooked. Oh, the adventures in my craft room. Here we go. So dunk it in there and then just tap it off and set it. And you know, who says there's things digital stamps are not something you can do cool things with? Believe me, they are. So look at this sentiment we made. This sentiment is so interesting. So there's these squares, and they're arranged in a trio. Going in threes is always a good idea when you're designing. 3 is more interesting than 2, so we have the 3 layers here, and that is much more interesting than 2. So now I'm attaching this with some dimensionals. This is the, I would call that the focal point, and then the sentiment is going to have dimensionals on one side, and then just tape on the side where it overlaps the collage piece so that it is even, because that's an uneven level. So you have to have something thicker on the left side so that it's flat. So I have the dimensionals on the left, which match the dimensionals behind the collage piece, and then tape where they overlap. And I apologize for being off camera. I have a tendency to do that, but it's nothing you're missing that's important. I'm just putting tape on there. Oh goodness, having a little trouble getting, there we go. So that overlaps. And you know, one thing that's good, if you have a lot of pieces like this and you're afraid you're not going to remember where they go, just snap a picture of them when you layer them. And then when you are going to glue them down or tape them down, you'll have a reference. Now I decided to add some beautiful organza ribbon. And I couldn't make up my mind if I wanted purple or if I wanted the wild honey color. So I decided to go with, of course, both. So here's how I did it. I'm going to cut both pieces about 5 times the width of the card. Oh yeah, I love my ribbon. And I don't like to be skimpy with my ribbon, because you can cut it small and then you're going to make a mistake and not have enough, and then you've wasted that ribbon. So you're better off starting with a little bit more than you need. And you'll see, I use most of this. So I cut those off, and I keep all my ribbons in bags by color in a bin, and I organize them by rainbow. Of course, they don't always stay so neat, but at least I try. So with these 2 pieces of ribbon, we're just going to lay them on top of each other and tie them into a bow by making 2 loops and then playing with them until we're happy with the size. And I don't want the bow too tight, because if it's loose enough, you might even be able to get this into an envelope. Although, this is probably a card that I would give someone, by hand it to them. But I don't know, you probably could get it into an envelope. So here is the bow tied, and I am going to attach it with Fabrifix. Fabrifix is acetone base glue for fabric and works terrifically on not only fabric and ribbon, but also I use it in my journals because it doesn't have any water. So it doesn't buckle the paper at all. Now I've had this bottle for a long time. Here I'm playing with the ribbon, just kind of making it looser, because what's going to happen is we're going to end up antiquing this ribbon, making it vintage, and I'm going to melt it a little bit. So it's going to shrink. So we want to start out with the bow big enough so that when it shrinks, it doesn't get really tiny. So here I just used a little Fabrifix, and this stuff dries super quick. So here you can see how I loop the ribbon up like little mountains with little spots of Fabrifix. So I'm going to do it again here. You'll see just little spots. And this stuff kind of oozes out of the bottle, so when you're done, you want to put the cover right back on. Okay, so here you see me again, pressing down. You want to make sure you get both layers of ribbon into the Fabrifix. There we go. Now I'll trim off the ends. And I go in and out with my heat tool, and I'm not speeding this up. That is how fast I'm going. And the ribbon curls and looks so pretty. And some holes might melt in it too, but it's okay. It's beautiful. And there we are. Look how pretty that is. Nice curly ribbon, and it matches the colors. Got to add some sparkle. So what I've decided to do here is to add some Nouveau vintage drops, and this is Bonnie Blue vintage drops, and I'm just going to add trios in 2 spots on my sentiment. Just loving to dress it up, and of course I use 3 dots, and I don't necessarily put them in the same type of a triangle, but you do work in triangles. You could put 2 close together, 1 farther apart, however you want, but I do work in triangles. So I got 3 down there, and then I'll have 3 up in the top corner, and now I'm moving on to some glitter drops, and putting glitter drops. This is the clear white blizzard glitter drops. So when that dries, all you're going to see is the glitter. There won't be any color. And I'm putting that right over all the little edges, little dots around the edges of my butterfly. Just tiny drops. Nothing I have to worry about. And then after that, I go ahead and use some crystal drops to fill in my flower so that my flower will be clear and shiny. This dries clear. Morning Dew Crystal Drops by Nouveau, and these dry clear. So I'm just filling that in. You wouldn't want to use this on a big shape, but this is a small enough shape. If you use too much of this on a big shape, it tends to crack. And there's our beautiful card. Thanks so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next video.